And so today we are continuing what we started off last week. We're looking deeply into the law of assumption and how our assumptions absolutely create the world we're living in, both personally and globally. And so we were asked to consider and to look at very sincerely attitude and attention and assumptions and imagination. And there are two other key ingredients that we need to have in our spiritual arsenal as far as spiritual necessities are concerned. There wasn't enough room on the marquee for necessities, so they put up need. But today's talk is on spiritual necessities. And two of those necessities that we're going to add to what we've already studied from last week would be desire and intention. Desire and intention. Extremely important to your well-being and mine and the creative process and us using aright the law of assumption. And of course, remember what we discovered last week, that it matters not at all what we're looking at when we're looking at something, regardless of what it is. What matters is the assumptions we are making as we are looking at whatever it is we're looking at. That's what's important, not just what's there, but what I'm assuming as I'm looking at what is there. So we're continuing in that mode because really and truly the key to everything is an understanding. With all of your getting, Scripture says, get understanding, get knowledge, get understanding with all of your getting, you know? And I don't know when we write down our list of all the things we want to get, if understanding is on top of the list. I don't know about that at all. I know it hasn't been on the top of my list always, that's for sure, but now it is. In all your getting, get understanding. And so we're looking at these things, desire, this thing called desire. Well, desire, of course, is that deep longing and yearning and burning and desiring that goes on within us, sometimes for things we're not even aware of, but mostly for things we are aware of. We're thinking about what we haven't got when we're in longing and when we're in desiring and when we're yearning and so on. And all of the saints and sages went through all of that, longing and yearning and pining and so on, as the scriptures tell us, like the deer that yearns for, running water, so my soul is yearning for you, my God. Or blessed are those who hunger and thirst for righteousness, for they shall be filled. Or every night I flood my bed with weeping and I drench my couch with tears. And I always think, oh gosh, that poor soul cried so much that the bed was so wet it had to get up and get on the couch and start wetting that, and with the tears. The bed wasn't enough, it didn't do it, kind of thing. And so I think we all have a sense of what that longing and that yearning is to some extent. To some degree or another, I think we all understand that. And it's a very real thing, and it's a very present thing in our lives, that we get that longing and we get that desire and we get that yearning. And it's passionate and it's powerful and it's to be taken seriously. It's to be looked at and not poo-pooed, You've got to look at it and see what it's about. And then decide whether you can use this to your good or not, and you can. So, with regard to assuming, the good that you desire, with regard to manifesting the objective in your life, whatever that is, we are told that there must be a passionate, deep desire underpinning whatever that is. A passionate, deep, longing, yearning, desire for this thing to happen and manifest in our lives. That's what desire is all about. And coupled with that, we must have an absolute solid intention of realizing it. We must be intense about it. Intense about realizing this good thing, whatever it is that we want to accomplish and to achieve. There's a very wonderful aria, I can't remember which opera it's from, But the loose translation is, tell me what love is, what can it be, what is this burning, yearning inside of me? Let's see, what is this? And you and I have asked that question, what is this burning? If I could sing, I'd be singing it to you, but thank God I can't sing, because you'd never get out of here, because it would all be opera every week, you know, it'd be aria after aria. And so anyway, this week we're going to look at our desires. We're going to look at what it is that moves us to this intensity, to this degree, and see if we want to do anything about it, if it has something to do with something we want to accomplish, an objective or something like that. So that's the coupling there, the intense desire with the intense intention of realizing it. And so in that process, there are key things that have to happen. And the first thing is the desire. Now, the second thing in the process of using the law of assumption to our well-being is to learn how to be still, to become quiet in mind and body and heart and soul, to become still, to become immobile, as Neville calls it. Immobile, and Neville was a great metaphysician of the 50s and a great spiritual psychologist. So we have to learn how to become still, and that's why it's written, be still and know. Be still and know what? Be still and know that I am God. And in this context, God is the great I am. God is the power and the presence for good in the universe greater than we are, that we can use because we are endowed with it. It is the presence of the Christ light within us. We are endowed with it, and we can use it for good, for our good and the good of any person, place, or thing. And so we have to come to terms with that. There's no getting around it. You and I are called to be still so that we can know, so that we can understand, so that we can accomplish, so that we realize, so that we release the desire into fruition and fulfillment. And so what does that stillness look like? Now, I have to have an intense desire around being still too. Does it look like this? I am going to be still. I am going to be still. I am going to be still. It has nothing to do with that. It has nothing to do with efforting. It has nothing to do with struggling. In fact, that kind of stillness is more like a dreamy, sleep-like state in which we are fully awake, alert, and aware. That's what it's more like. It's more like this. The opposite of I'm going to be still kind of thing, efforting. And that's what we have to get to. Now, there are certain times of the day when it's easier to get there. The best possible time is when you first open your eyes in the morning and you're neither awake and you're neither asleep, but you're just in that dreamy state of coming back into the world again. That's your best possible place to get that sense. And last thing at night, when you're just falling asleep nicely and you've done your connecting with Source. You've done your connecting with Source. And you're in that state and it's just lovely. And you're neither here nor there. You just are. You're neither in the sleep world or in the awakened world, the objective world. You just are where you are. It's that isness moment. Now, I don't expect us all to be able to understand all of this because there's no describing it, you see. It's impossible to describe. And you'll all have your own experience of how that is, each one of you. But it's a beautiful thing. It's a lovely thing. It's a peaceful thing. It's a joyful thing. And the quickest way to manifest anything is to be in a state of joy, in a state of peace, so we can allow it, get out of its way, and let it happen. Let it happen. That's the second part of the process, being still. And the third part, of course, is always assuming the thinking and the feeling of the desire already fulfilled. That's the third, part 3. Now that is the seminal secret of all of the ages. That's it. You know the secret of the ages now. There's no other secret to know. That's how you do it. You have a deep desire. You're clear about it. You're very clear about it. You're able to become still enough and open enough and receptive enough and quiet enough and peaceful enough and joyous enough to be that receptor to this good. And then in that state, you're already assuming your desire already fulfilled and in place. Or as Emerson says, when you can get clear enough and you can feel deeply enough about the end that you want to accomplish, then the means by which the end is to be achieved has to appear, because that's how life works. And it's not just for great sages and saints, or those who have achieved a black belt in spirituality and beyond that. It's for you, it's for me, it's for everyone. Children do it all the time, and I love the grace and ease with which children realize and assume and manifest and are able to work the law of assumption beautifully. It's like the little child who wanted a kitten. She wanted a cat, she wanted a kitten. No way was there a cat or a kitten coming into this household, because one of the parents was allergic to cats to begin with, and it just wasn't going to happen. But she overheard adults talking about the law of attraction and the law of assumption, and she overheard them talking about visualizing, and she overheard them talking about how to go about the process. And so she decided that's what she was going to do, the 7-year-old. She was going to see that kitten, and she was going to realize that kitten, and she was going to give thanks for that kitten already in her life. And so she could see herself with the kitten, and she could see herself training the kitten and playing with the kitten and so on. She had named the kitten and everything else. And she kept talking to her mother about the kitten, and the mother said, you know, sweetheart, it's just, don't upset yourself and don't disappoint yourself, because we can't have a kitten in the house. It's just not going to happen. This kid said, you know, it's nothing to do with you, Mom, it's between me and God, and I'm going to get my kitten, and I know I'm going to get my kitten. Well, lo and behold, she's out in the yard one day and she's daydreaming about her kitten, and out of the sky a kitten falls right down in front of her feet. Truly, out of the sky a kitten lands in front of her feet. She picks up the kitten, she says, thank you, God, goes into the mother and says, God sent me the kitten. You have to let me keep the kitten. And of course, well, what could the parents do? They let her keep the kitten. Learned afterwards that this little kitten had found itself up a tree, a very tall tree. The fire brigade had to be called in to help the kitten. But whatever way they pulled back the branch, they slung the kitten so far that the kitten landed right down in front of this child's feet. That's how she got her kitten. But she had no doubt about it. Which brings us to the other element that's involved here. And it's the element of faith. You have to take the scissors of faith, the knife of faith, wherever of faith, and cut wide open all that membrane that's filled with doubt and fear and all the rest of it that says you can't have. And you have to cut that membrane open and let it dissipate itself and let out all that glorious, wonderful, radiant knowledge, intelligence, light that is yours to go forth and do its work and bring through you the good that you desire. Faith is it. So this week we have to ask ourselves, how am I doing faith-wise? How am I doing? Is my faith intact? Is my faith solid? What am I believing? Do I honestly and truly believe there's a power for good in the universe greater than I am, right in me, available to me, that can bring about my good? Do I really believe that? I have to ask myself these questions. I have to ask myself, you know, what do I have faith in? Am I having faith in negativity? And because I am, the negativity remains in my life and keeps coming into my life? Because remember, we can have faith in negativity as well as in the good. You'd be surprised at how much faith each one of us have in the negative. You would be amazed if you were to look at it closely. So this week is about that. It's understanding, can I have what that child had? Or like the woman who came into the teaching, very quickly for the first time. And she was a woman who was well-to-do and a well-respected person in her community and so on. But hard times were coming the way, and she had bless her, she had a summer home, and she had also a beautiful apartment in town. But in order to be able to afford to go to her summer home, she was going to have to rent her apartment in town. And she'd had this apartment with the realtor who was taking care of it for a long time, and nothing was happening. So she found a practitioner, a renowned practitioner. She went to him and she shared that really she was desperate, she was up to the wire, that very soon something was going to have to be done if she was to be able to take her family to the house in the country. And so the practitioner went through with her the tenets of the laws of assumption and so on, and she was invited to visualize, where she really wanted to be for the summer. Well, she went home that night and she spent a good hour and a half in a chair visualizing herself in her country home, and really getting into the feeling of it so much that she kind of startled herself when she came back into the room and realized she wasn't actually in her house in the country. Lo and behold, what makes this extraordinary is the next morning she gets a telephone call, somebody desperately wanting to move into her apartment immediately. And that's the extraordinary part of that, the brevity, the quickness with which that happened. And it happened for her, you know how it is, the newbie's mind, you're open and you're receptive to sometimes things that you take for granted later on, and other stuff gets in the way of it. But she was so at one with that, she so assumed the feeling of her desire fulfilled. She was so at the end of the process, she could see herself at the end of the process, she could see all of that in fulfillment and so on, that it happened for her. It happened for her straight away. She went to bed, slept on it, got up the next day, and there it was. These are ordinary people doing these things. The children and ordinary people doing things like that. If they can do it, you can do it, and I can do it too. But we must have the discipline and the control and be decisive, intentional, directional with regard to the good that we desire. We can't sit around and mope and just wait for it to happen and just mouth off some kind of an affirmation and think that that's going to take care of it. It's not. You have to show up, sit yourself down or walk around, or however it is you can get into that still space. However you get there, you have to give yourself that opportunity to do that. You have to train yourself. This is training. This is spiritual boot camp. To get on the inside of this process, which you all know in theory, everyone in this room knows this process in theory, but to get on the inside of it, we must practice, 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 practice. And it does take a considerable amount of commitment, time, effort, and energy to get there. And in the beginning, when you first start the process, you'll wonder how you're wasting your time just sitting there twiddling your thumbs with nothing much going on. Well, something is going on. And the very fact that you intended to show up, the very fact that you put yourself in the chair, the very fact that you sat there for however minutes you sat there, that's a beginning. You did something. It's a start, and it's a great success. It's a great success, even though you haven't got anything to show for it except what you think is a loss of time. Except you're not going to be thinking that way anymore, are you? You're just going to show up and do what you do and allow it to happen. That's the way it works. It's a very simple process, and that's why I'm spending a lot of time on it. Simple process, not easy to get to that place where you're absolutely certain and absolutely sure, where you're in the stillness, in the quiet, to the extent that you can be peaceful and joyous and open and receptive to the good that you desire, to the point that you can assume the feeling of it already in place. What does that look like in your life? If you assume the feeling of that which is already in place, you have to start living like it's so. That means you have to start thinking like it's so, feeling like it's so, behaving like it's so. And guess what? It will be so. That's the way it works. You have nothing lacking in you at all. There is no lack within you with regard to being able to manifest your good. You are there already. You are capable, you are competent, you are intelligent, you have the genius within you, you can do it. The thing is, you have to get up off your lazy dairy air, your spiritual lazy dairy air, and invest, intend, be intense about your investment and your intention. Be passionate about you getting your life sorted and squared away now. Be passionate about mending and fixing and healing and sorting out whatever it is needs it. And you know what needs it in your life. Nobody else knows better than you do. Now, if you don't care about that, you just meander along, saunter along, and think mañana and someday. There is no mañana and someday on any calendar that I know. It doesn't exist. If you're going to get it done, it has to be done today, here and now, today, where your power is today. And when you get into that still state, what you've done is you've extrapolated yourself from the world of the objective, and you have closed the doors on all of those amazing distractions that can occur, and you have surrendered yourself totally and fully to realizing that the promises that the divine makes are true, and the divine stands in its promise to you. I have come that you may have life and have it in abundance, that your joy may be complete. I have come that you may experience the peace that passes understanding. But you have to want it. You have to want it enough. You have to be passionate about your wanting it enough. You have to be intense about your desire. You have to really give it your all. Total surrender. Total surrender. Letting down the armor, the guards, all the rest of it, the nonsense that stops us and blocks us. You have to give it up. And you know what that means? No more complaining, no more blaming, no more kvetching, none of that. That means staying in the energy of the power and the presence that lives within you, that chose to live by means of you, for heaven's sakes. So you have to think like the divine, you have to feel like the divine, and you have to act like the divine that you are. You are an aspect of the divine. And that's what we need to identify with, and not with an over-identification with our humanity. Beautiful though it is, you have to get that into balance with the divine. And when we do, all is well. And no matter what's going on in your life, you and I have to learn to say, all is well, no matter what way it looks. Because it's not always as it appears to be. So, my dear ones, I'm looking forward to this week, because I'm looking forward to you and myself being able to manifest good from that beautiful state of absolute certainty, absolute joy, absolute peace, because it's not ours at all. We're just identifying with the peace and the joy and the goodness of Spirit within us, and allowing Spirit to be itself by means of each one of us. Isn't that wonderful? We're going to have a marvelous week, and I'm knowing that this time we've really heard it, this time it really has rubbed off, and this time we're ready to get rid of, or at least start releasing, the inertia that paralyzes us and keeps us in that terrible state of mesmerism, that terrible state of spiritual inertia. We're going to start waking up from that and moving our spiritual dairy airs and getting active in our own lives spiritually. Yes? Yes. Because I am knowing you're here because you're taking your spiritual unfoldment really very seriously. And so whatever it is that Spirit wants to present to us on a Sunday morning or any other time is what we need to hear. So whatever it is that has been said here, I need to hear it, and you need to hear it, but more than that, we all need to get up off our dairy airs and start being what we can be. Yes? Yes. And so it is.